And welcome back to This Week. Time now to get the views of our media and political experts, Metro Councilman at Large Jerry Maynard and syndicated talk show host Steve Gill. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Happy holidays a little bit early as we close towards the end of the year.
You too.
They're claiming it has nothing to do with the huge losses by Democrats here in Tennessee in November, and yet State House Democrats have chosen new leadership. Gary Odom is out. Mr. Fitzhugh is in. And from what we hear anyway, it was a little bit of a surprise to Gary Odom, although folks within the party said some kind of change had to happen.
Yeah, it was no surprise for the Democrats, for those of us who are involved in it every day, because Gary Odom, he was the leader when we lost all of these seats. And so in the caucus, when you lose that many seats, it's time for new leadership, it's time for a change. And so we have a representative from rural West Tennessee. He's a moderate, and he's a person who's going to bring a new message, new energy. Also, you got to look at Mike Turner. Mike Turner did not lose his seat. And so the reason why Mike did not lose his seat is because Mike worked extremely hard. He raised money, went all over the state of Tennessee, helping candidates to try to win those seats. And I believe if we had not worked as hard as we had done, we would have lost 25 seats. As opposed to just the ones that we did lose.
Yeah, and I think that really is the point. First of all, you had a major loss, and if you have a really bad series of losing seasons, football coaches, basketball coaches, everybody gets fired. The other thing was that Gary Odom didn't travel around the state, and this wasn't a surprise that took everybody by shock on November 2nd. This was building, and there was time to raise money, there was time to get out there and help candidates. He wasn't out there putting the blood, sweat, and tears into it, and I think the Democrats have made a good move, saying, look, you hit the reset button, we're going to have to work hard, slog hard to get back. And if you have a guy who won't work hard to keep it, you probably have a guy who's not going to work hard to get it back.
We're the minority now, and so we have to realize that. And we've been acting as if we're not the minority. Last year we had Kent Williams, and we had the little coup thing. But again, we have to decide. We're going to lead right now based on the fact we are the minority, and we need to begin to act like it. We need to get our message and get our leadership, and understand that this is the position we're in right now. Hopefully, we won't be in there 2 years from now.
That was my question. With 34 members now, as opposed to 50 just a year ago. What do you have to do to begin the process of bringing the Democratic Party back here in Tennessee? Because it has been beaten congressionally, U.S. Senate, House and Senate here in Tennessee, and the legislature.
Well, we got to talk about what's a Tennessee Democrat. Not so much what's a national Democrat, but what's a Tennessee Democrat. We have to talk about the values of Tennesseans. 95% of all Tennesseans agree on the values. It's that 5% that separates us. The Republicans have done an excellent job of exploiting that 5% on guns and other things like that. What the Democrats have to do is we have to talk about health care and access to health care. We got to talk about pre-K funding. We got to talk about education and education reform. We got to talk about jobs and economic development for all Tennesseans, not just the special interest groups. If we do that, we'll be back in maybe not 2 years, maybe not 4 years, but 6 years from now, we can take back the majority.
I think the problem for the Democrats is they can talk about all that stuff, but they had unbridled control in Tennessee for the most part since the Civil War. And if you haven't fixed it in the last 100 years, you're probably not going to fix it in the next 2. It's time to let some folks try some new ideas to improve education, to improve the quality of the job market in Tennessee. And the problem I think the Democrats face in Tennessee is you cannot divorce yourself from the leftward tilt of the National Democratic Party. We saw that as you'd send folks who would talk conservative in Tennessee and then go up to Washington and vote lockstep with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the gang. I think the Democratic Party nationally is going to be an anchor chain still around the Democrats in Tennessee.
And the Republicans are going to make the same mistake, because guess what? We're going to have the Arizona immigration law come front and forward. We're going to have people talking about whether Obama is a real American or not. And instead of focusing on education and the jobs, I see the Republicans making that mistake and taking on some of these national issues that have nothing to do with Tennessee. And when they do that, the Democrats got to be ready to pounce on it and say, we care about working families. Every day we wake up, we're worried about working families. We're not worried about these hot-button issues like immigration and other things like that, like guns in churches and guns in schools and guns everywhere, guns everywhere.
I think the illegal immigration issue is a Tennessee issue. There are illegal immigrants working in Tennessee, depriving Tennesseans of jobs, killing Tennesseans on our highways driving drunk, killing Tennesseans with murder. There are Tennesseans paying the price for illegal immigration and paying the price as taxpayers for illegal immigration as well. All this other stuff, I don't think you're going to see the Tennessee legislature spend much time about whether Barack Obama's a legal citizen.
And there's no question there's going to be several immigration bills proposed beginning in January. Nationally, a big defeat for President Obama. Part of his health care bill declared unconstitutional. It had won lawsuits challenging this aspect of it until now. Federal judge, though, ruled that actually requiring people to buy health insurance is unconstitutional. The fight's not over with, but this is a big loss.
It is, but you're going to see there's 20 states, 30 states that have litigation pending. It's going to go through the trial court, federal court process first. It's gone in Virginia. It's going to be moving up in Florida. The Tennessee Attorney General has refused to take any action. Yes. Maybe he's going to be forced to, or maybe we're going to see Tennessee move to an elected Attorney General as a result. This will move to the appellate process. It'll ultimately be decided in the Supreme Court. The interesting thing is the Obama administration has taken a 180-degree turn on what they say about this issue. When they were pushing Obamacare, they said it was not a tax. It's not a tax, even though it imposes basically a burden on individuals. Now their argument to justify it constitutionally is it's a tax. It's just a tax. So you can't even trust this administration on positions they're taking on their own legislation.
Well, we can trust them because they care about the American people. The Obamacare does this. It provides health care for 33 million Americans who did not have health care. Let's talk about what has happened. We have 3 cases where the Obama administration won. We lose one case where the judge is basically a Republican operative. He and his wife are part of a Republican organization. This guy is a political person. He's not just a judge. And so I believe that either it's going to be overturned in the appellate court, or, like Steve said, eventually all the cases will be consolidated, and they will come into one case, regardless of what the leading case. It'll go to the Supreme Court. And I believe that this will pass muster with the Supreme Court once Obamacare gets there.
It's pretty clear, though, if this aspect of the law is ruled unconstitutional, the law is pretty much gone.
And what we're talking about is the federal government telling you, you have to buy what we tell you to buy. Whether they're going out telling you have to buy a Ford Prius, whether you have to buy your satellite coverage from DirecTV versus cable coverage, the federal government has no business telling the American people what you have to buy, and that's the crux of the issue.
That's a little over the top. What the federal government is saying is that all of us have to buy health care insurance, because if you don't buy it, Bob, if you don't buy health insurance and then you go to the emergency room, Steve and I are paying for it. So either way, you got to look at it as toothpaste. You either push it to the left or push it to the right, but somebody's paying for your health care. So if you buy your health care at minimum rates as required by the federal government, then that's one thing. That means all of us are buying into the system. If you don't buy, then Steve and I have to pay for you, and the taxpayers then have to pay for you, which means you're going to have a sicker community, a community that's not healthy, because you won't have health insurance in order to make sure that you have a good, sustained, healthy relationship with your doctor or your provider. Instead, you just go to the healthcare provider when you have an emergency, which is not good for our country.
Again, we could have the federal government dictate that everybody has to buy the exact same car, and we'd be just like the former Soviet Union. Everybody would have the same car.
Like the Soviet Union? Come on, Steve.
When the federal government starts telling you what you have to do, that is exactly what communism did.
The state makes me buy car insurance.
That's the difference. You have a choice to drive a car on public highways. You don't have a choice about health insurance, and it's the state.
Whether you get sick.
It's the state doing it, not the federal government.
You don't have a choice whether you get sick or whether your children get sick.
The federal Constitution has restrictions on what they can do. The state is where you can impose health care restrictions, auto insurance restrictions. This is the federal government doing it. That's not constitutional.
These are the arguments that the court is going to decide.
That's exactly
Jerry Maynard, Steve Gill, appreciate your
time. And they won't be nearly as eloquent as we are.
They probably won't be. Stay with us. This week continues in a moment.